So, good evening to all of you. In the last class, we discussed about what are the challenges with artificial intelligence. So, we discussed the various challenges we need to address while designing any AI-based application, like bias, errors, data. So, various challenges we discussed earlier in the last class. So, to address all these challenges, so Microsoft proposes few principles, and those are called as principles of responsible AI. To address the challenges in AI, so Microsoft proposes few principles that related to the responsible AI. So each principle will address one challenge that we mentioned in the previous slide that we discussed in the yesterday's class. Anyhow, so before going to discuss about the principles of responsible AI, so I want to move to some other topic. Later, I will come back to the principles of responsible AI. So the topic is confusion matrix. So why I'm going to discuss about the confusion matrix? Because you will get few questions from this confusion matrix in your examination. Maybe some of you are aware of the confusion matrix, but anyhow, it's my responsibility to teach this one again. So first we will discuss about the confusion matrix. Later we will move to the principles of responsible AI. Okay. So what is the confusion matrix? Why we require it? Generally, confusion matrix is used in a binary classification problem in order to find the accuracy of the machine learning model. So confusion matrix is used uh, in a binary classification problem in order to calculate the accuracy of the machine learning model. So what is the confusion matrix? How we develop the confusion matrix? We are going to discuss now. Okay. So let's assume. So you got a project, COVID diagnosis project you got. Let's assume. So you are working on and you are developing a machine learning model. You developed a machine learning model to diagnose the COVID. Okay, based on some features like fever and oxygen level, okay, and pulse rate and cold and cough, okay, and fever, O2, pulse rate, cold and cough. So and finally your target level. So this is the data that you used to build a application, AI-based application to diagnose the COVID. So let's assume your data contains some 5 samples. Let example I'm telling. Let assume your testing data contains 5 samples. So 5 samples means first sample you have fever value, O2 value, pulse rate value, cold value, cough value, and the label. That may be 1 means it is a positive, N means 0 means negative. So for the second sample, based on the values of the each feature, let us assume label is a 0. That means COVID negative. And similarly, further another sample, let us assume again a COVID negative. And for another sample, let us assume it is a COVID positive. And for another sample, it is corresponding to a again COVID positive. Let us assume this is the data, this is the testing data which you want to use to test your machine learning model. Okay, friends, I hope you understand. Okay. So what I mean to tell you here is, so let us assume you developed a machine learning model to diagnose the COVID based on some data. Now machine learning model is ready. Now we want to evaluate your model on the testing data. So this is the testing data. On this testing data, you want to evaluate your machine learning model. Okay, so if you want to evaluate your machine learning model, what you will do? Now, while testing, you have to feed the input data. It's called input data, input features data. So just feed. So you do while testing, you are not use the labels. So this is the machine learning model. Let us do. Let us this is the machine learning model. During the training, you will feed the both input and also you will feed the label also from the data during the training process. During the training process, You will feed both input features, all these 5, and also you have to feed the label, output label also you have to feed during the training process. Where in the testing process, you will feed only input features, not the label. Okay. So this is the machine learning model you have already, you developed already, you trained it, and you are happy with the training process. Now you want to test this machine learning model. So to test this machine learning model, you are giving the first input sample to this machine learning model, and what your machine learning model predicting, that you have to take here, note it here. Okay. Hope you understand, right? So this is the original label. Here, what the machine learning model is predicting. So this is the original label, and this is what your machine learning model is predicting. So this is the actual label, and this is what your machine learning model is predicting. Hope you understand. Okay. Now, so 1 means positive and 0 means negative. You have to remember that also. Now, I will feed the first sample to this trained machine learning model and note it down what your machine learning model is giving the output. So let us do, for the first sample, your machine learning model gives as a 1. So that means your machine learning model predicting if the favor value is this one, OT value is this one, pulse rate is this one, cold is this one, cough is this one, then the machine learning model predicted it as a COVID positive. And similarly, when I'm passing the second sample, for that also it is showing as a 1, that is a COVID positive. And when I'm passing third sample, it is showing as a 0, that means it is as a COVID negative. It is predicting. So this column is corresponding to what your machine learning model is predicting, and this column is corresponding to what is the actual label in your data. What is the actual label in your data? Okay. And when I'm passing the fourth sample, your machine learning model is predicting as a COVID negative. When I'm passing the fifth sample, your machine learning model is giving an output as a again COVID negative 1, like this. So this column is the actual column, and this column is the predicted column. Okay, hope you understand. Now, after passing all the testing samples to your machine learning model, note it down what are your machine learning model is predicting. Now, based on the actual label data and based on your predicted label data, you have to prepare a matrix that is called as a confusion matrix. So confusion matrix will be, it is a 2x2 matrix. Confusion matrix is a 2x2 matrix. Okay, and this is corresponding to the actual labels, and this is corresponding to the predicted labels. Okay, what are the labels we have actually? We have label 0, 1. In the actual data, your labels are 1 and 0. So that is the 1 and 0. Whereas in the predicted also you have the 1 and 0. So 1 and 0. So you have, it is a 2x2 matrix. Confusion matrix is a 2x2 matrix. Now tell me, how many number of samples are there where your machine learning predicted as a 0? That means 0 means it is a negative. So your machine learning model predicting as a 0, and actually it is also 0. That means your machine learning model is predicting negative, and your actual data also negative. How many samples are there? Such type of samples 0 and 0, predicted 0 and actual 0. Here predicted 1, no. Here predicted 1, no. Here predicted 0 and actual also 0. So there is 1 sample. So this is the 1 sample. And here predicted is a 0, but actually is a 1. So it is not a sample we considered. Here also not considered. So where we get the predicted 0, actual 0. Predicted 0, actual 0. We have only 1 sample. We have only 1 sample. So this is the 1 here. Hope you understand. Students, can you please tell me what the value I have to fill here? In this column, in this box, what the value I have to fill it? So I am expecting number of samples where your machine learning model predicting as a 0, COVID negative, but actually this is a COVID positive. So how many samples are there with prediction 0, but actual 1? So one person responded. How many samples are there? Yes, only 1 sample. I will check. So 0 and 1 we require. So predicted as a 0, but actually is a 1 sample. That means only 1 sample. Perfect. Now tell me, friends, what are the number of samples, or what is the number I have to enter here? That represents number of samples where your model is predicted as a 1. That is a COVID positive, but actually it is a COVID negative. Actually it is a COVID negative. 0 means negative, 1 means positive. So how many samples are there where your machine learning model is predicted as a 1, that is a COVID positive, but actually it is a negative. So prediction 1 and actual 0. How many number of samples are there? It's again 1. So predicted value 1, actual value 0. Yes, it is also only 1. Perfect. Now what about this one? So prediction 1 and actual also 1. That means your machine learning model predicted as a COVID positive and actually it is a COVID positive sample. So how many samples are there? Yes, it is a 2. Perfect. It is a 2. What are the 2? 1 and 1. So this is the 1 sample and this is the another sample which are the 2 samples. So this matrix is called as the confusion matrix. So this matrix is called as the confusion matrix. So what this cell represent? Number of samples. Actually that is a COVID negative. Actually that is a COVID negative. Prediction also COVID negative. That is the only one sample. What this cell represent? So the number of samples where the actual sample is a COVID positive sample, but you are predicted as a COVID negative sample. That's it. And what about this one? It is a actually that is a COVID negative, but your model is predicting as a COVID positive. What about this one? Actually, that sample is a COVID positive, and your model also predicting as a COVID positive. Okay. So hope you understand. So this is called as a confusion matrix. And what each cell represent? Now I want to write here separately. What each cell represent? What each cell is represented. So come to this cell. Your predicting is negative. Actual also negative. So what you are predicting as a negative, that is actually negative. So it's called as a true negative. So this cell both are 0. That means you are predicting as a negative. Actual also negative. So it's a true negative. That's called true negative. And coming to this cell, you are predicting as a negative, but actually it is a positive. You are predicting as a negative. See, you are predicting as a negative, but actually it is a positive. So this is called as the false negative, because you are predicting as a negative, but actually it is a positive. That's why it is a false negative. And coming to this cell, you are predicting as a one positive. You are predicting as a positive, but actually it is a negative. You are predicting as a positive, but actually it is a negative. So this is called as the false positive, because you are predicting as a positive, but it's a false because it is actually negative. And what about this one? You are predicting as a positive. Actually, it is also a positive. Both. So you are predicting what you are predicting as a positive. Those samples actually a positive. So those are called as the true positive. So someone responded. Perfect. Perfect. It is a true positive. So this is the you have to remember. So this is called the true negative, false positive, and true positive. Make sure that this is corresponding to the actual labels. This is corresponding to the prediction label. If these places are reversed, then these cell values will be changes. So make sure that this is the, you can observe here. So this is the predicted values and columns are the actual labels. So true negative, false negative, true positive, and false positive. Now, in what way you will get the questions? Actually, in examination, they will give this table. They will give this table. They will give this table. So from that table, they will ask questions like, so I will write a new table here, a new confused matrix. I will write new confused matrix. I will ask questions. Please respond to that questions. Okay. So this is the prediction label and this is the actual label. So 0, 0. These are 0 means negative, 1, 1. 1 means positive. Okay. So this is the 20 and this is the 80 and this is the 10 and this is the 15. Now my question students, they will give the table like this and they will ask questions. How the questions will be like this. How many number of true positive samples are there? Please respond using the chat box students. So the question will be, yes, it is 80. So number of true positives are 80. You can see this table parallel if you want. So if you want, you can see this table parallelly. So there is a number of true positive samples equal to 8. Agree. So anyone can tell false positive samples. How many number of false positive samples are there? Perfect. False positive samples are 15. And how many number of false negative samples are there? False negative samples 10. Perfect. How many number of true negative samples are there? It's 20. Perfect. So you will get this type of simple questions in your examination, in both practice examinations. Maybe you will get in your final examination. Maybe. So they will give one confusion matrix, and you have to find the. They will ask for the number of true positive samples, false positive samples, false negative samples, and true negative samples. Okay. And also they will ask what is the accuracy of the model. What is the accuracy of the model? So accuracy of the model is generally calculated as true positive sample plus true negative samples divided by total number of samples, the true positive plus true negative plus false positive plus false negative. So that is the accuracy. So accuracy of the initial in the model can be calculated like this by seeing the information available in the confusion matrix. Based on the information available in the confusion matrix, you can calculate the accuracy of the new machine learning model by using this formula. So true positive plus true negative divided by all the samples, true positive plus true negative plus false positive plus false negative. So what is the accuracy of this machine learning model? Accuracy of this machine learning model based on this confusion matrix. True positive, that's equal to 80. True negative, that's equal to 20 divided by true positive 80, true negative 20, false positive 50, false negative 10. So you have to calculate this level. Yeah, someone given 1032 is at it is a 0.8. That means 80% accuracy. Okay. So that is how we can build a confusion matrix for a binary classification problem in order to observe the performance of the machine learning model. So you will get these questions, this type of questions. Please be careful in your examination. So clearly observe the table and give the answers. So make sure that this cell is a true negative, true positive, false negative, false positive. This cell will be valid only you have prediction. You have prediction here and actual label here and 0 here, 1 here, 1 here, like this. Okay. If it is reverse, then you have to think. Okay. So I will ask one more question separately. Please respond to that. Now, variable contain true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative values. First, true positive, number of true positive. True positive from the confusion matrix thing. Agree. It is 80. So this is the true positive. True negative. Agree. 20. Right. False positive. False positive. False positive. So see, 1032, you are wrong. 1095, you are right. So false positive, that is 5. So be careful. Why it is a false positive? Because you are predicting as a positive, but actually it is a negative. That's why it's called as a false positive. You are predicting as a positive, but actually these are negative. So that's why it's called as a false positive. Whatever the false negative, number of samples of the content of false negative. Now mask for the false negative. So yes, it's a 25. Okay, it's a 25. Why it is a false negative? Because you are predicting as a negative, but actually it is a positive. So that's why it's called as a false negative. Perfect. So this type of questions will come in the examination, and you can easily calculate the accuracy also. So we know that true positive plus true negative divided by false positive plus false negative plus true positive plus true negative. By this formula, you can easily calculate the accuracy solution model. Okay, thank you. Yeah, fine. This is about the confusion matrix. Now we will move to principles of responsible AI. Yeah. No pen is required now, just only interaction. So coming to the principle of responsible AI. So each principle of the responsible AI will address the each challenge which addressed in this slide. The each challenge that mentioned in this slide. So those are addressed by these principles of responsible AI. There are 6 principles of responsible AI. One is called as fairness, another is called as reliability and safety, and third one is called privacy and security, and inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. So these are the various 6 principles of responsible AI. So responsible AI is a AI which address all the challenges which are listed in the previous slide, like bias, error, and privacy, all those things, challenges, what we mentioned, what we discussed in the last class, what we shown in the previous slide. So those challenges will be addressed by using these 6 principles. Then if that AI is able to address all these 6 principles, then it's called as a responsible AI. It's called as a responsible AI. Now, first we will discuss about the fairness. We will discuss about the fairness. Please listen carefully, completely theory, but try to understand. So fairness means if we develop any AI-based solution, that must work fairly, without any partiality, that will work fairly. That will not bias towards any particular parameter, or that will not bias against any particular feature. Hope you understand. So you have to build an AI solution. If you are able to build an AI solution, which is a fair solution, which is not partial towards any of the particular feature, it is not biased towards any particular feature. It is not biased towards any against any particular feature. Then that AI solution is obey the fairness principle. So your solution must be fair. Okay. So example is actually Amazon, previously Amazon developed one AI-based application for scrutiny the applications of the candidates who submitted for the job. Okay, sorry, Amazon developed an automated application, AI-based automated application. So the main purpose of that AI-based application is it will scrutinize the applications sent by the candidates for the job purpose. But what the problem is, while building the application, actually while developing the application, we require the data, right? While developing the application, we require the data. So what the problem happening there is, while developing the application, in the data, they contains the more number of samples related to the male candidates, very few number of samples are belong to the female candidates. So to build the AI application, we require the data. So in that data, unknowingly, there are more samples corresponding to the male persons, very less number of samples corresponding to the female person. So with that data, that application was trained. Then what happened? That is not balanced. So more number of samples from the male and less number of samples are collected from the female. Then what happened? That application was biased towards the male candidate and biased against the female candidates. Then what happened is whatever the application is coming from the female candidate, it was rejected. And whatever the application is coming from the male candidate, it is accepted. Because it is biased towards the male person and it is biased against the female person. So then it's not fair. So you have to build an AI application that will be fair. It will be fair towards gender. It's fair towards the locality. So you don't build an application which biased towards the place where you want. Maybe you build some application which belongs to various states, but you are more biased, more partial towards a particular state, and you take the more data from that state while building the making the machine learning model. Then what happened? Your model will bias toward that state. That is not the case. Don't do like that. So make sure that your data will be balanced and it not biased towards any particular feature or it not biased towards against any particular feature. So make sure that one. Hope you understand what is the fairness. If your AI application is not biased towards or not biased against any particular feature, it was very fair. There is no partiality. Then you can say that your AI solution, your AI application will pass the first principle of responsible AI. That is the fairness. Hope you understand. So how this Azure machine learning, Microsoft Azure machine learning is capable to maintain that fairness while building the AI application. How the Microsoft Azure is capable to maintain that fairness in a machine learning application, AI application. How? So here you can see the second point. That is, Azure machine learning includes a capability to interpret the models and also quantify how much extent each feature will have influenced your machine learning model prediction. So that Microsoft Azure service, it is able to quantify how much each feature is has the influence on the prediction. So that type of quantification analysis also will be done using the Azure machine learning, so that you can maintain the fairness principle in your application easily. So this capability of the Azure machine learning helps the data scientist. What is the capability? The capability of the Azure machine learning is it is able to quantify how much influence each feature can be have, how much amount of how much extent each feature has an influence of the model prediction. So that capability will help the data scientists and the developers to identify and mitigate the bias problem in the model. Identify and mitigate the bias problem in the model. So based on this one, if there is more number of samples are from the male and less number of samples from the female, then your Azure machine learning service will give the information that there is a high bias with the male because of the large number of samples in the prediction. You have to take care of balancing the samples. That type of instructions that we give some numerical analysis, some numerical data display. So that's why you can use the Azure machine learning model to fulfill the first principle of responsible AI for your AI solution. Okay, so I want to share one video. I hope I explained well. I hope everyone is able to understand. If not, still if you're not, I want to share one video with you, which describes about the fairness problem, fairness principle. Please listen. It's 1 minute. Yeah.
So right now, we do live in a society that is unfair and biased in many different ways. And I think the whole point of focusing on fairness in AI systems is to make sure that the systems that we develop and we deploy reduce unfairness in our society rather than keep things at the same level or even make it worse. And for me, that's really the goal. We've seen a lot of news stories over the past couple of years about AI systems that are used to allocate or withhold opportunities, resources, or information in domains like criminal justice, employment and hiring, finance, credit. AI systems can reinforce existing societal stereotypes. Another example would be cultural denigration. We also have over and under representation. There isn't a single definition that we can easily quantify and just integrate into our systems. Fairness relates to not just the system, the technical component, but it relates to the societal and that means that fairness, in the context of AI systems, is a fundamentally socio-technical challenge. This means that we've got to have a greater diversity of people developing and deploying AI systems. And what we see is that the assumptions and decisions made by teams at every stage of the AI development and deployment lifecycle can introduce biases. And that's why this is such an important topic. This isn't something that we can just sort of delegate to one or two people and call it quits and move on. No, this is something that everybody has to be thinking about really actively.
Hope you understand the fairness principle of the responsible AI. Now we move to the next principle of the responsible AI, that is called as reliability and safety. Reliability and safety. So AI systems should perform reliably and safely. Reliably and safely in all the possible conditions. Okay, suppose if you are developing an autonomous car, it is able to identify all the objects on the road that will operate very reliably. Otherwise, there is a huge damage will be happening, very dangerous issues may be happening while going in the autonomous car. So your AI model should be more reliable on the various environments. Similarly, if let's assume you are developing a particular disease diagnosis application, a medical application, that medical application diagnose a particular disease and it will give some prescription. Suppose if your application is not reliable, then what happens? It will give the wrong prescription. You don't have a COVID, but it is diagnosed as a COVID. Then it will give the prescription. So that even though patient doesn't have the COVID, but he uses the COVID medicine. It's not a right. Similarly, if the person actually has a COVID, if it is detecting as a COVID negative, then what happened? Hospital people will send him to the home, and he is roaming on the roads, and he spread that COVID to some other people. So the very dangerous issues may be happening if your AI solution is not more reliable. Okay, so make sure that your system is more reliable and more safe. So I hope you understand what I mean by the reliability and the safety. In all the environment conditions, all the possible environmental conditions, your application able to work properly, more reliably. So if you want to maintain the reliability in your AI application, you have to do the more rigorous testing on the various environments. So you have to do the more number of before deployment, you have to do the more amount of more test cases you have to work. And the more various environments, you have to run the various testings have to be done on your model before it is going to the production environment. Okay, so if you want to build a responsible AI solution, the what you have to do, so you have to do more number of test cases, you have to run more number of test cases, you have to test your application, test your model under the various conditions. So that is the thing you have to do. Hope you understand what means the reliability and safety of a machine learning model. Oh, sorry, what is the reliability and safety principle of a responsible AI? Okay, if that is, if your model is able to work in all the conditions properly, all the possible conditions properly, then you can say that your application is more reliable and more safe, and it also passes the second principle of your responsible AI. Second principle of your responsible AI. So hope you understand what means by the reliability and safety. And I want to share one more video which is belongs to reliability and safety principle of responsible AI.
Reliability and safety is a concern for every AI system we develop. We need to make sure that the systems we are developing are consistent with the design ideas we have and working in a way that it is consistent with our values and principles. And this requires that our systems, our models, are not creating harm in the world. And if there are situations where they may be making mistakes, we actually push products out there with quantified and well understood risks and harms in a way that we actually share that with our users. This is kind of the guiding principle we have with respect to reliability and safety. And it is really a concept that applies to every AI product we have in the company. When we think about safety, the first examples that come to mind are self-driving cars. But it's not even limited to those physical systems, physical agents. We actually worry about harm to human lives when a machine learning model is making predictions about people's health. In hospitals, when they are making predictions about diagnosis, wrong assistance can lead to harms for people. So those are the cases that we really worry about because the threat is to human lives. But this doesn't mean that this issue is only for those physical systems.
Not pass the reliability and
reliability is a big concern, and small mistakes may pile up when a system gets used many times across large group of people. And that's why it is a concern for everything that we build.
So this is about the responsible AI. Second principle, that is the reliability and the safety. Now we move to the third principle of the responsible AI, that is called as privacy and security. Right. So your AI systems should be more secure and also respect the privacy of users. Respect the privacy of your users, because it all working with huge amount of data, especially in some applications are very, we have to maintain more privacy in some applications, especially in the medical applications and also in the defense applications. So if you build a chatbot to interact with the patients, then you deployed it in the production environment and users are using that medical application, chatbot application. So generally patients are open with the doctors because it's not good to say, it's better to tell everything, what are the problems we have to the doctor, then only he can take an action perfectly. In the same fashion, the users or patients, if you are interacting with the chatbot, they feel that they are interacting with the doctors. So what are the questions asking to the chatbot, they will give the very fair answers. Even something they can't share with others, but they will give every information to the chatbot. So that information you have to maintain high private. That is very private information. We can't what's called exposed to other third party. You can't expose to third party. You have to maintain more privacy for that data. Similarly, defense sector also. These data, defense sector and banking sector, these are very these data we have to maintain more privacy. There are very high confidential data. So your AI solution, the application what you are developing, make sure that the data what that was stored during the working environment. So users are entering the data. So data, you have to keep the data in a very high secure and privacy places. So that is what I mean by privacy and security. The privacy and security highly related to the data that is coming and going through your AI application. So that data you have to maintain very privacy. You have to maintain privacy and security. Okay, so hope you understand what I mean by the privacy and the security principle of responsible AI. Hope you understand, right? So the data will be some data are very confidential, very private. So you have to keep it in a high privacy zone with high security. Don't expose to the outside the world, outside the application. Hope you understand. So there is one more video which is related to the privacy and security. Hope you understand what means the privacy and security. If not, this video may help you to understand the privacy and security principle of responsible AI.
Privacy is a fundamental right, and Microsoft has a long-standing commitment to privacy and security in the systems and products that we build. With AI and machine learning, we add new complexity to those systems and an increased reliance on using data to develop those systems, to train the systems. That increasing reliability on data adds new requirements for keeping the system secure. For example, we're using more data. We need to ensure the protection of that data, that it's not leaked or disclosed. One of the ways we approach that is to not remove the data from a customer's device, to run the models locally on the device, eliminating that potential vulnerability. When we consider the security aspects of these AI systems, you have to think through where and how the data is coming from, if it's user-submitted data or a public data source that's being used in the prediction. How do you prevent that from being corrupted? Having things like anomaly detection or other systems for detecting changes in the data that might indicate that there's an adversary trying to influence the results of the system.
So this is about the privacy and security principle of responsible AI. Privacy and security of the responsible AI. So coming to the next principle. Now coming to the next principle. So another is the inclusiveness. So inclusiveness means AI systems should empower everyone, engage the people, all the people. That means if you are developing an application, if you are developing any application, make sure that what are the possible stakeholders for that application. You have to include all the people. You have to include all the people, right? Suppose if you are developing an application for SR University purpose, so you have to consider all the stakeholders of the SR University. Don't avoid any particular section of the people. Okay, so don't separate because of some visual impaired or the physical disabilities or sexual differentiation. So you have to maintain that. Include that. You have to include all possible stakeholders into your. You have to consider while developing the application. Let's assume I am developing a mobile application. I'm developing a mobile application to recognize the Indian currency notes. So if I am developing a mobile application to recognize the Indian currency note without audio, then I exempt the visually impaired people. Visually impaired people can't do that application, right? So that's why when you are developing any application, you have to include all the stakeholders, all the peoples, all the places, irrespective. Don't avoid anything. You have to consider all the possibilities. What I said is you have to consider all the possibilities, not all what are exist, all possibilities. So let us assume if you want to build a application, to predict the housing price in a Warangal region, then you have to consider all type of apartments, single bed, double bed, triple bed, all type of apartments considered, and you have to consider all number of floors. You have to consider various localities of the Warangal. All the possibilities you have to include. That's called inclusiveness. You have to include all the possible combinations while developing your application. While preparing the data, you have to include all the possible combinations. All that means don't try to include the locations in the Mumbai, locations in the Hyderabad when you are working for the Warangal. That's the reason all possible combinations you have to include. If I'm working for the Warangal, you have to include all the possible combinations that exist, all the possible stakeholders, all the possible features comes from the Warangal region. So you have to include all. So Saru, include cheyamantunarani. So don't include the Hyderabad related information and Mumbai related information in your application. So that's why I said that the possible combinations you have to include. All possible combinations you have to include. Don't omit, don't avoid. So try to observe all the things. What are the possibilities are there? Who are using the application? So you have to think before train and test that model. At the time of data preparation only, you have to think who are using this model. So that thing you have to use. Okay. So hope you understand. Like suppose you are developing one smart home device where it will recognize the voice commands from the users. So if that is the case, you have to include the voice of the different age people, because in a home there is a possibility of the different age people. Like there may be old people or some adult people or childs also there. about gender, man and women also there. You have to consider all, you have to include all the combinations while developing an application. That's called inclusiveness. So you have to include all the possibilities while doing the application. Okay. Hope you understand what what I'm telling about the inclusiveness principle of AI. So just if you not understand, this video may be helpful for you to understand this inclusiveness.
If we think about what we're really trying to achieve, we want to make sure that we as Microsoft empower and engage the communities around the world, making sure that no one is left out, making sure that we are intentionally inclusive and intentionally diverse with the approaches that we take towards AI. We want to make sure that that full spectrum of communities are covered. And if we truly think about how we can design for the 3%, we can then solve for the 97% at the same time. We want to make sure that experiences like Seeing AI, speech-to-text translation out of PowerPoint, and other technological examples that we have that we're building upon, including the Microsoft accessibility standards, represent just an example of the extensive toolkits that we have here to ensure everyone truly designs for an inclusive AI future. As a woman of trans and non-binary experience, and also being Latinx as part of the underrepresented minority community, ensuring that these future experiences are truly representative of the underserved minority communities, we need to make sure that they're involved both in the earliest concepts and feature design and planning, but making sure that they're part of our testing, that we are also building with, side by side, individuals to make sure that we are not taking an ableist perspective for the population we intend to serve.
I hope you understand what means the inclusiveness. Don't left out anything. You have to include all possibilities. That's what you can understand from this video. And coming to the next principle of responsible AI, that's called transparency. Transparency. So transparency means the AI system should be understandable. So what are the AI applications you are developing that is easily understandable to your user? If you are developing a very, very high complex system which users can't understand, if it's not users not able to understand, then there is no use to build such type of application, right? So you have to build an AI application that is understandable to the user. So to make the system is understandable to user, that make the system, users will trust your system. What you have to do, you have to be more transparent. You have to prepare a good document, very good document for your application, saying that what is happening, how you can use everything. You have to detailedly explain in the document and share with the user. Then only they will trust you and they will understand your application. Then only your application will have a life. Otherwise, if no one uses your application, what is the use of developing? Okay, that's called transparency. So don't hide anything. Try to get the trust of the user. Don't hide anything. Keep everything transparent about your application. Everything you have to keep transparent. Means don't expose the data about the application, about the limitations of the application, what the application is doing. Everything will be more transparent. Yesterday I told you an example, right? There is one application around 2020. I said that if you keep our finger on the scanner, it will read and it will give information about whether the person has COVID or not, like that. I didn't install the application because I don't have a trust on it, because I don't have much information about this one. So if you build an application, you have to prepare a very nice document. The document easily understandable to the user, and with the document, the user easily understand your application, and with that document, your user trust your application. So like that, you have to provide a document with high transparency without hiding any information. So that is about one of the principles of the responsibility that called transparency. So don't hide anything. So you have to clearly expose is not asking about the data expose. You have to expose everything about your application, how it will work, how the user can use it. So all the things you have to explain in the very nice document. then definitely your AI application will pass the transparency principle of responsible AI. So hope you understand what I'm saying about the transparency principle of responsible AI. So you will get this type of questions, students. The question will be like this: if you are developing a AI-based application, and if you are providing a nice document to the users to make users easily understand your application, and also to get the trust of the users on your application, then which of the following principle of responsible AI will be passed, considered? So options are maybe transparency, inclusiveness, and privacy and security. Then the option is a transparency. So such type of questions will be comes in your examination related to the principles of responsible AI. So hope you understand what means the responsible AI transparency principle. So if not, I will share another video which belongs to transparency principle.
Transparency and intelligibility can help us achieve a really diverse range of goals. So things from mitigating unfairness in machine learning systems, to helping developers debug their AI systems, to gaining more trust from our users. There are two sides to transparency. In part, transparency means that the people who create AI systems should be open about how and why they're using AI, and also open about the limitations of their systems. Transparency also means that people should be able to understand the behavior of AI systems. This is what you often hear referred to as interpretability or intelligibility.
Yeah, hope you understand the transparency principle of the responsible AI. Then we will move to the last principle of responsible AI, that is called as accountability. So what means by the accountability? So people should be accountable for the AI system, as well as the designers and developers who developed the AI solution should work. And as a developer, don't think that I can design any application what I want in which fashion I want. Not like that. Once you want to build an application, that application should work within the framework of the governance and organizational principles. So if you are developing an application for a particular organization, for a particular government, so then your application should work in the framework of that governance and the work in the framework of that organizational principles. Okay, so you have to design like that. You have to design like that, and also it must meet all the ethical and legal standards. Okay, you have to take the accountability for that application as a designer, as a developer. You have to take the accountability of something that happening. So don't say that I build an application that will work. If it's not working for that is your business. I'm not responsible for anything. Don't tell like that. It is your accountability as a developer. Okay, so you have to fulfill all the legal standards, all the government, your application will work, all the organizational principles and all the framework given by the governance system. So there is accountability. So you have to take the accountability. So if you build an application, AI-based solution, as a designer or a developer, as a company, you have to take the accountability if something is happening with that application. So that's why you have to go with the legal procedure for all the things in the real time. Suppose you are developing an autonomous car and you keep it in the production, some people are using. So don't say that if something is happening, some problem is happening, I'm not responsible. You have to tell everything. You have to take the accountability for that. So make sure that, so when you can give the accountability, when you have a confidence on your application. So make sure that you build a very high confident application, well-performing application, and take the accountability for that application. So this is the last principle of responsible AI. So hope you understand the information about the principle of the last principle, accountability principle of responsible AI. So if not, please just listen.
Despite all the complexity with these new models and with new technology that can be somewhat unpredictable and somewhat hard to interpret, we are still accountable for how our technology impacts the world. Second, I think about accountability as the structure that we put in place so that we make sure that we consistently are enacting our principles and that we're taking them into account in everything that we do. Also, part of our accountability is to help our customers and partners be accountable. We have a set of principles that guide how we develop and how we sell and how we advocate for regulation on facial recognition, because we feel like all three of those pieces are really critical to be accountable. We think it has a lot of great uses, and we also think there are a lot of uses that could interfere with people's civil liberties or push society in a direction that we're really not interested in supporting.
So in moving from our facial recognition principles to practices and processes that we can follow across the company, what we've had to do is to take a high-level principle, such as our commitment to fairness, and think about how do we have our development teams view every stage of the development lifecycle with those principles. So today we have a set of guidelines that they can follow and think about these sorts of considerations at every step of the life cycle. And that's really a first in this company, and I think in many other places outside this company as well.
So this is about the last principle of responsibility called accountability. So with this class, we completed all the principles of responsibility. You will get some questions, maybe 2 to 3 questions in your practice examinations and also in final certification examination from this principle of responsible AI. Okay, so please hope you understand about the confusion matrix and also about the principles of responsible AI. So this is the class for today, and we will meet tomorrow. That is the last class. And in the tomorrow's class, we are going to work on how we build a machine learning application without Microsoft Machine Learning Designer. Using the Azure Machine Learning Designer, how we will build a machine learning application without a single line of code, that we are going to discuss tomorrow, and tomorrow is the last class for us. And I posted a few resources for your preparation. So please go through all those resources.